Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 52 units of real estate. So today I want to talk about how I became a millionaire by around 28 years old. So honestly, I didn't start tracking my net worth until I was probably 30. But I kind of estimate looking back that I hit my net worth of $1 million at around 28 years old. And I'm going to share how I did it. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but the beauty behind that is, I didn't do a hack. I didn't do any secrets. I just did very basic things for a long period of time. And over time, this helped compounded me to $1 million net worth. And fast forward to, at 28, I hit $1 million net worth roughly. And then today at 34, I have a $6.2 million net worth. And I own 52 units of real estate that cash flow $10,000 a month. And I did all this while working a full-time W-2 job, albeit it is a higher W-2 income job because I'm a pharmacist, but I did come out with $250,000 of student debt. So that kind of equalizes out a little bit. But let me share how I got to $1 million net worth by the age of 28. So when I graduated in 2013, I owed $250,000 in student debt. And it was hugely crippling. And the first job that I got paid me about $50 an hour, which is about $120K a year. So for me, I used to think making six figures was a lot of money back when I was a little kid. That's why I chose to be the pharmacist profession. Like medical school is too long and I don't want to go through all that grind. So I was just like, well, pharmacist is the happy medium. It's 5 years of school at high school and you're going to make six figures. Back then they paid about $120K for regular pharmacists. Now it's, thanks to inflation, it averages about $160K, and if you're in management, you're making over like $220,000, which is kind of where I sit today. So for me, when I graduated, I just said, okay, I made $120,000, and I didn't think I was rich at all. And what I did was I didn't lifestyle inflate. So I took on about $5,000 a month, and whatever money I had, I would spend, try to save as much as I could, right? So I had a very high savings rate. Like for rent's your base expense. I was just renting a room. I remember I was renting a room for like $500 a month, and I was taking home like $5,000 a month. And yeah, it's inconvenient. I'm sharing like an apartment with two other people, but that's how you get cheaper rent. And I was used to living with people because I was in the dorms. I was only at home after work. Like I usually would go to work, go to the gym after work, go back, eat, and then go watch TV in my room, go to sleep. Like that was kind of my day-to-day routine. So, I didn't really need that much privacy. I was just in my room most of the time, just shower, sleep, and eat. So because I was only spending $500 on, my rent, and then maybe another $1,000 for like eating out, or if I cooked or whatever, just doing activities. So I would spend $1,500 a month. I took home $5,000, so I would have $3,500 a month that I could allocate to save towards a emergency fund and to aggressively pay off my student debt. So that's exactly what I did, right? So I was making, I was probably saving money for I would be saving at least 50% of my income for like most of my career, right? And because once I made $120,000, I didn't feel rich at all. Like I just felt like I was like, oh shoot, well I make this good money, but I have $250,000 student debt, so it's hard to feel rich. So I didn't lifestyle inflate. I didn't get nice apartments. I didn't get new car. I just live like a poor broke college student, right? And then fast forward 2014, I got like a 2% raise, which is like nothing. And then I job hopped in 2015 to make around $160,000 at the time. And so my income increased by $40,000. And I think I was taking home about $8,000 a month. But my living expense was actually less because now I got to move back home. So I was living at home for free, and I was fortunate to have that. But, it's not cool living with your parents all the time. Like there's certain rules that you have to abide by when living with your parents. Not as much freedom living on your own, right? But that's the cost of saving money. So I was able to save money on rent, and now I went from paying $500 for just a room to paying $0. Or if I want to just rent a room in the area I was living in, I could have done that for maybe $800. So I mean, even if you don't want to live at home, you could still rent a room for $800. So once again, my living expense was like 10% of my take-home income. I was taking home $8,000. Let's say if I were renting a room for $800, I wasn't. I was just staying at home for free. So my expenses were about $1,000 a month. So I had $7,000 in margin that I could invest and save as an emergency fund. So at that point, I think my savings ratio was huge. It was like, I don't even want to do that math. It's like 80, 90%, right? Like I was living off like 80% 20% of my income, and then 80% I can just invest. So that's what I did. I would aggressively, max out my 401ks, max out my IRA, do the backdoor Roth conversion, and then I have emergency reserve of like at least $10,000-$15,000 at the time, which was plenty. And I would then take the rest to like pay off my student loans. So I did that aggressively for 4 years, and then after 4 years, I paid off $250,000 of student debt. Right. So now at this point, my net worth, I just wiped out my $250,000 of student debt, which is negative to your net worth. Right. So like I started off with negative $250,000 student debt, and then after maxing out my 401k for like 4 years straight, I had about $80,000 in there, I think. And then let's say it appreciated a little bit, so let's just call it $100,000 or a little bit over that. So I wiped off $250,000 student debt, but now I have $100,000 in 401k, plus I have some reserve. At this point, I just said, okay, now student loans are done. I'm going to continue saving 80% of my income. And now at this point, I want to save for a down payment on a house, right? And then during this window from like 2000 and I think 14 to 17. So 2017 is when I paid off my student debt. So that's 4 years out of school. So like I said, that's when I pay off $250K. I maxed out my 401k every year. It's about like $20K on average, I think, or it might have been less back then, but that's $80,000. The market has been going up, so maybe it's worth like, maybe 50% more of that. So maybe 120K. So my net worth is 120K. Then at this point, this is when things started to really accelerate for me, is when I bought real estate, right? So now I put 10% down on a house, right? So I put 10% down on a house, and at that time, I got a job that paid me $200,000, so I was taking home $10,000 a month. Once again, I'm living in a house, I'm paying a mortgage, but I'm house hacking the property. So I rented out 3 bedrooms, which covered my mortgage. I just had to cover property tax, insurance, HOA, utilities, which came up to be $1,500 a month. And then when I bought a house, I even cut my expenses lower even more, because I was like, well, I want to save money to invest. So I was taking home $10,000. I was paying about $1,500 for my living expense, but a lot of that money came back to me. And then at this point, I basically, just took my money, and then I would spend as little as possible, right? Because I wanted to save money for the next house. So my expenses dropped significantly. Maybe I was spending like $600, $700 a month on top of that. So I was living off $2,000 a month, but I was taking home $10,000 a month, right? So saving $8,000 a month. And then this compounded, right? And then every year that I owned this single family home, so from 2017 to 18, my house appreciated by $80,000. From 2018 to 2019, it appreciated another $80,000, right? And then at this point in 2019, I bought my second house hack. So I bought another house 10% down, and then I did the same thing. I rented out a bunch of rooms, which I think 4 rooms I rented out, which covered my mortgage of $5,400, and I would pay the rest, which was like maybe another $1,500 to of property tax, utilities, internet, all that stuff to live there. And once again, I was able to save $8,000 a month. So this is when the compounding starts to happen, because now I own my first single family home is appreciating by $8,000 a year. My second one is appreciating by $8,000 a year. So this is when things started to compound. My income went up, and then my stock portfolio started to double because it was a crazy bull market. So I think, actually now thinking out loud, I probably hit the net worth around maybe 29 years old, not 28 as I originally said, maybe early, just turned 29. Because now I own a bunch of assets where my stocks are compounding. My real estate is appreciating and compounding. Both my properties are compounding, and then I'm still working, and I'm still investing, and I'm still saving. So that's really all it is. Honestly, all I did to become worth $1 million by let's call it 28, 29, is I just I spent less than I made, right? And I had to maintain I don't even know, at least 50% savings rate. At some point, it was 80% savings rate. And I was able to sustain that for a long period of time and take that money and I invested it, right? Maxed out my 401k always, maxed out my IRA always. I would save for a down payment on real estate. I would house hack. So I would keep my expenses low and focus on increasing my income over time. So, it's pretty simple, right? Literally just spend less than you make, take the rest that you have and invest it. Right. And then, I was able to do 80% because I was a single guy. Maybe you're at the point where you can't do that, but could you do 30%? Could you do 40%? Could you do 50%? Right? It's a temporary sacrifice, so that now, even to this day, I probably, I take home like $12,000 a month, but now I pay a mortgage here, or half a mortgage, which is 3,700. So that's, let's just call it 4,000. That's like still like 30% of my expense, and then I probably live on $1,000 on top of that. So I take home 12,000, and I just my W-2, and I spend maybe 5,000, but this is not factoring my $10,000 a month of income from my real estate, right? So if you factor that in, it's still a relatively small percentage of that. So even to this day, I live off a small fraction of what I make. So that's the key concept: is can you live off a small fraction of what you make? And it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right? So even if you're making like $4,000 a month, but if you're able to keep 2,000, I mean, you're better off than somebody who takes home $10,000 a month, but they spend 11,000. They're going to be in credit card debt, right? Like there's a lot of people who make good money, like $200,000, $300,000, and they spend like they're a millionaire, and they're in credit card debt, like massive amount of credit card debt. So, and because they just can't stop spending. So if you can control your spending, if you can increase your savings rate and invest the rest into assets like index funds and real estate, and you let that compound over years, that's how you get there, right? And then like fast forward, like now at this point, I think just in 1 year, like my net worth just went up by $1 million because I own a bunch of real estate that all went up, my index funds all went up, and I'm still working. So like everything just compounds over time, and it gets easier and easier and easier as you do it. So it's just the beginning where it's hard. So really that's it. There's no secret sauce. It's really just save money, have a high savings rate, and invest the difference, and keep on investing it and sustain that for as long as you can. As long as you can keep your lifestyle lower, do it. Even if you make it big and you make a killing in the business, like it's temporary. So invest that money into something safe and still live like you're poor. Like that's the downfall of a lot of business owners, is they kill it for like 2-3 years, but their business crashes and burns after that, and they built up a lifestyle where it's too expensive. So that's why you have to gradually inflate your lifestyle. Like for me, I'm probably gonna just live in this house for a long time, and maybe if I'm worth 50 million by the time I'm like 45, maybe I'll upgrade to a bigger house. But I may not want to, because it requires a lot of energy to like maintain a house too. So maybe I just want like a simple house, right? Like that's livable, like and decent, and not be a slave to that house and be a slave to that mortgage, and just kind of do things on my own terms, right? So really, if you want that net worth goal, it's just keep your expenses as low as possible, and that gives you a freedom in a way too, right? Like even if I'm rich and you want low expenses, like you don't want to be making a lot of money but you have a lot of expenses, like now you're dependent on these high expenses. That's why a lot of like the entrepreneurs who have like a lot of employees, they're forced to like always do something because they have high overhead expense. But for me, I want to have very low overhead expense. So that's really it. The secret to building $1 million net worth, before 30, let's just call it. Anyways, if you let me know if you have any questions, hopefully you found value from this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want to learn to buy multifamily real estate with some guidance, check the mentorship program down below. Otherwise, hope to see you next one. Thank you so much.